Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm ZS Caraval from ZK Research, and I'm here at Penn One, Cisco's New York offices. This is Global Citizen Week.
Yes, it is.
But it's also UN Week, it's
Climate Week,
all those things.
It's every week.
Yeah.
We were talking about the golf tournament.
Yeah, the golf tournament's also here. It's every week to have the city full of people. So I'm with Mary de Wysocki, Cisco's Chief Sustainability Officer. Mary, you were very active this week in different climate discussions, participating in Global Citizen.
Yeah.
First, just a quick intro on yourself.
Yeah.
And then some key thoughts from this week.
Yeah, well, I've actually been with Cisco, I like to say, for a quarter of a century, because that sounds really long.
Yeah, it does seem really long.
And started my early career as kind of a pro bono consulting when everyone was really coming to Cisco to understand how do you deploy digital and the internet applications in your environment. But then kind of had the ability to switch a bit, use all that learning on how technology can be a source for good in the social impact and now the sustainability space. And I happen to be a New Yorker, so I'm welcoming everyone to the city.
Yeah, and so as you participated in your sessions this week, I actually posted one of them on LinkedIn. Any key themes from the week that you thought were worth calling out?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest themes is sustainable equals your business. I think especially as a technology company, and we're looking at the tremendous impact that we believe AI can have, it's so clear that AI equals the demand for electricity, the demand for power, and that needs to be done in a way that we're conscious of the sustainability opportunity as well. So the business side of sustainability was forefront in every conversation, whether it was what is that intersection between technology and energy. A lot of questions on how are we not only embedding circularity, embedding sustainability into the way we run our business. A lot of conversation about what we're hearing from our customers. There was a number of interesting conversations where it would be, let's say, the sustainability leader and a policy advocate. So interesting intersection of care abouts, sustainability in finance, sustainability in legal, sustainability in customers. I think it was super interesting. I would say one kind of feeling that I think I'm leaving the week is determination as we're maybe at Cisco midway through our sustainability strategy and journey, the ability for us to connect the dots on, at minimum, risk and how do you build a company that's really future-proof or really resilient, but also how I'm really connecting it to where we're growing our business as well.
Yeah, in fact, I was asking somebody else about this, and they said it seems like this year a lot of the things coming into Climate Week is turned into action.
Yes.
Where before we were talking a lot about vision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's probably a good thing for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the words that came up is like we're now in that kind of realism phase, right? How are we rationalizing? At Cisco, we've got a couple of public commitments, and as we turn our attention to FY26, we're closing out FY25, looking at two really important ambitions of ours. One being our net zero, our interim target, which is reducing our carbon emissions by 90% in scope 1 and 2. It's basically, what are we doing in our buildings and kind of those labs, how we're running our business, as well as embedding circularity, 100% of circular design principles incorporated into all our new products and packaging. We're optimistic as we're looking at the data, but what that allows us to do is really talk about the lessons learned. I think that's another thing that was super interesting this week, is talking to people in different verticals and explaining the kind of action that we took and what that looked like. The return on investment that we've seen through some of the fantastic work that we've partnered with our workplace resources around using renewable energy, these power purchase agreements that really creates a lot of energy security because you're locking in rates 5, 10, 15 years. So super interesting kind of combinations between what are you doing for your business, how are you quantifying it, what's the governance, right? How are you really embedding business acumen and financial acumen into your strategy?
Yeah, in fact, I think this build out of this building is a good example of that.
Exactly.
Remember when it first opened, Mark Miller told me there's more IoT devices connected here than there are IT devices, and a lot of that has to do with understanding people flow, power management,
Yes.
all the light fixtures are all LED now, right? And so they can all be network controlled, and so
Exactly.
just doing things that you did before just in a smarter, better way, right?
And I think that's the fascinating part. When you truly embed sustainability into your strategy, you may not even know it. So why did we think about redesigning this space? It was really starting with, what kind of work are we doing here?
Yeah.
What would really enable the work? This is such a customer engagement space, especially this week as we brought so many people through it. But then you design every room for the kind of work that's taking place. This is a great example of a collaboration space. And recognizing that often work is still going to be hybrid. You're going to have some folks in the room, but how do you make it equally impactful if you've got people in a virtual area as well? Having been a longtime Cisco employee and New York being my home, it's fascinating because I can sit here and go, I need a little quiet space over here, I need to collaborate over there, I need a room that's really enabling brainstorming. And I think one of the things that I don't know that everyone recognizes is when we first moved into this building, again, traditionally, office would be on the outside, but now, look, we've opened up the space and actually have a great view of the Empire State Building. So I think people don't recognize that by imagining the way you want work to take place, enabling it by the technology, and as you mentioned, all the lights, the blinds, using power over Ethernet here. I think it's like 36% reduction in electricity use. So again, a great ROI where you're really embedding sustainability as just one of the additional value drivers of what we're looking to do.
Yeah, that was another thing Mark said when they rebuilt it. They tore down some walls and like, wow, who knew we had this view? So yeah, that's kind of funny. Now you mentioned AI, and of course Cisco's taken a real leadership position in AI infrastructure, right? In fact, I think just your quarterly results show that.
Yes.
And so as the company has gone through the product evolution, delivering more AI infrastructure, how has sustainability fit into that? And actually, and how does AI fit into sustainability? If you understand the difference.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it always first starts with how you're designing your product. And that's why the importance of the circular design principles right there, embedded into how our engineers are thinking about it, starting right with Silicon One, for example. When you think about circular design principles, they're modular, reducing waste, thinking about making it easily assembled, disassembled. One of the critical areas here is energy efficiency. So it's right there as the engineers are starting to think about product design. I think one of the next steps, and I always like to bring up the role of a system engineer since that was my beginning in the technology space, is how do you design it in the field? And I think that's again where having the information on what is the product able to do from the business outcome. What do you do to make sure that it's the most secure? How do you make it more modular? But you also can design it where you're reducing your carbon footprint as well. Some of the data centers, the new smart modern data centers, can be half of the footprint. Yeah. So just think about what that does to cost. But it doesn't stop there. Because then what you want to do is really introduce more and more intelligence, more and more information to that technology leader to make decisions. And again, this is where AI can be a really good source for good as well. As you start thinking about, well, what's taking place? What's happening not only in my own environment in terms of the workload and the work we're trying to drive, but now there's more and more information that you can pass to your utility provider. Here in New York, Con Edison. When you think about the grid, especially here in the US, I think it might be as old as I am, which is not quite young anymore. But what you want to do is be able to send information back and forth, because there's now more this kind of handshake, so to speak, or the kind of shock protector that I think data centers can provide by understanding a surge and deciding to move a workload to maybe a different data center, and or deciding, let's do this particular software upgrade at a different time. So that intelligence of energy management, or the kind of demand signaling between you and the utility player, is a huge opportunity as well. Yeah. So it's kind of like all the way through, and making sure that you're providing the right information to those individuals who can make the best decisions for the company and, quite frankly, the community. Yeah,
and I think why that's important is I think Cisco's always made good products, and it seems now you're taking a more active role into thinking, helping companies think through their AI and data center build it from a solution
Yes.
perspective, right?
Yeah.
Where I think, in fact, as you and I were prepping, I mentioned that one of the CTOs I talked to said for the first time in 15 years, they're looking at data center expansion, but
Yes.
perhaps that's an overreaction to where we are, and with a good design, you could actually keep it the same or less.
And this is where, for those of us that have been around the business, like I remember when we first started introducing data centers, and there were wild, varying opinions of how much energy a data center would require. And you saw that increase, but a plateau somewhere in the middle of the best case scenario and maybe the more expansive. And I think we're going to see the same here with AI. But one of the things that I'm so proud that Cisco has done is recognize, no matter what, that we as a community are going to need more energy. And so having Cisco Corporate invest in a new form of energy through Core Power Ocean, which is a wave technology, I think that's a great way also to go, okay, how do we think through the technology, whether it's communication or cybersecurity or AI or even energy that we're going to need in 2030, 2040, and 2050. So I think we play in lots of different areas.
Yeah, now Cisco's been a big advocate for circular innovation, sustainability now for a number of years. And how have you had to change internally, though, from the typical linear innovation that the company used to have?
Yeah, and I think this is where there's more and more evidence of just everyday consumers making choices, especially, for example, in kind of the consumer goods space around circular. But I was brought up where someone would make something, I would use it, and I just would dispose of it. I never thought about it. Where circular is really thinking about multiple life cycles, customer one and customer two. How do you make it more modular? How do you reduce waste? Stop painting things that may not add any value. Yeah. Do you make it really easy to assemble and disassemble? Are you using more recycled material? So I do think that we're hearing from our customers. You are starting to see some dynamic regulations in this space as well. But the first thing we did is come together as a sustainability community. Designers, engineers, supply chain experts to really just define what are those principles. And then you build out the education and you start training all the engineers, all of our leaders in supply chain. And then you also then start scoring your products and auditing it. One of the things that I don't think everyone realizes is how it actually creates innovation. I had the opportunity to spend some time with our hardware engineers in Austin, David Stalling and his team, and they took me through the latest catalyst, and they were explaining how just by turning a fan a certain way, how that reduced the energy consumption, or pulling out this plastic piece and putting something else in. When I think about innovation, some of the most disruptive innovation comes when I ask you to solve an additional problem or a different problem. We see this in supply chain where there was a very important public goal and we're like, I don't know that we're gonna hit it. And they were like, no, that's not good enough. And they went back and came up with a solution that solved the problem. So to me, I think this is another angle that people don't always talk about, is giving new or additive problems for your engineers or your supply chain team to grapple with. Not only is it really inspiring, but you come up with some great ideas.
So Mary, when you talk about sustainability, one of the things that I find interesting is that when you talk to CTOs and CSOs and CIOs about it, even business leaders, it's on their priority list. It's never the top, it's never the bottom, it's somewhere in the middle. Now part of it is because it's hard to measure the business value, right? And so let me ask you, does sustainability have business value? If so, how do you measure it and what is it?
First, it's absolutely it does. I think one of the things when I grapple with is quantifying the impact. I do think there are probably the kind of what we call maybe low-hanging fruit, those things that are really easy. I'll give you a good example. Take, for example, the energy we require to heat our buildings and our lab. We've got years of evidence that by investing in whether it's solar or renewable or a power purchase agreement, it has come at a often lower cost, a really strong ROI, and this kind of long-term price point energy security piece to it. So there are really strong business cases there. But the way I think about it holistically is a couple different ways. One, I think about it from a brand reputation, trust. What does sustainability leadership look like today? I had the privilege of spending time with one of our biggest investing groups, and one of the reasons they wanted to talk to me is because they saw it as a way that we were anticipating and building sustainability into the way we run our business is good governance. And they saw it as a really reliable investment source. So there's that trust in the brand. Another piece is purely market access. The reason we made a net zero commitment to begin with was because we wanted to do business with a particular country, and to do business in that country, I had to have a net zero commitment. So it's a market access.
Yeah.
Second, I do think I'm connecting it to growth. So what I do is I look at our top customers. I'll give you an example of our top 50 hardware customers. And I look at their contracts, and it's all about commitment to energy efficiency. Again, sustainability. One of the other things is looking at our top customers, our top partners, both public and private. And they've got public sustainability goals. When you work in this space, sometimes we use kind of a sustainability language. So how do you define the carbon responsibility? We use these scopes. And you ultimately assign responsibility across your entire value chain. So as soon as you do that, our top customers need us to design our products the most sustainably that I can for them to meet their goal as well. So I look at our top 100 customers all having similar sustainability goals. So it's a customer requirement. I think one of the other things, again, in this age of AI, we'll never be able to achieve that opportunity that I think we all know is there if we're also not doing it in a way that we're conscious of the energy and doing it in a sustainable way.
Yeah, so a couple pieces of advice then for companies that maybe are looking at their sustainability goals, they know they have to do something and aren't sure how and where to apply resources, or even how to get started. What's your advice then?
First and foremost, it's always understanding where you are. And one thing that I probably would have done different as I look back is I would have convened our top 50 customers and our top 50 suppliers and sat around a table like this and all decided, how do we move together? What are those combined goals? Where do we do joint investments?
And that's where Scope 3 really.
Exactly,
right? Yeah.
Exactly. So I do think the first and foremost is just understand where you are, and then really start understanding what are those actions that truly help you, whether decarbonize your business or introduce circularity. But I will tell you that from our own smart building here, it's just also sometimes going, oh, we're doing that. I just didn't realize there's a sustainable value proposition as well. For those of you that are out there not sure what to do, I would probably suggest they go to our Cisco.com purpose hub, because there's lots of information about our strategy, what's worked, and more use cases that might help them.
Yeah, or just come visit the New York office.
Very true.
Chicago office,
yes.
Atlanta, London, Paris, they've all been rebuilt, right?
Exactly.
That's
yes.
interesting to see. And so last question, so what's next for you and Cisco in this area?
I think what you're going to see is twofold. One is the continuing kind of narrative and evidence and logic, that strategy that really connects the AI opportunity to electricity, energy security, sustainability. The other thing you're going to see more and more of this year is that kind of business case, publishing more of the ROI, the kind of what did we do, what was that action, what was the return on investment, what would we do differently if we look back. I think always those lessons learned are critical. I think one of the other things, I mentioned our circular design, where we had a public goal. You're going to hear more about it as we publish our purpose report later this year, but you're going to hear more about circular design V.2. What's next? How do you continue pushing the envelope there? And probably lastly, I think you're going to just see more and more partnerships evolve. I think this is so critical to business, and whether it's one of our customers or our partners, or where we do, we kind of live, work, and create, building those resiliency in the communities is going to be critical.
All right, very well. I'll wrap it up with thanking you then for all the work you do, not just from a Cisco perspective, but just from the broader industry in general. You've been a very active speaker at Climate Week and Global Citizen over the years, and I think it's not something one person or one company can solve. And so all the work you and your partners do, I think, is is going to help make the world a better place.
It's such a privilege,
Yeah.
and I think I'm just one person, and there's so many phenomenal people behind this whole topic at Cisco that really it's a team effort.
Yeah, well, there's something the Global Citizen have taught us. It always starts with one person.
That's true.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
So thank you. And so on behalf of Mary de Wysocki, Chief Sustainability Officer for Cisco, I'm CS Caravallo from ZK Research, and thanks for watching. Give us a like and also hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on my next episode of ZKast. Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.